Here now is Lisa Bell and Candace Campos with Florida Foodie.
Hello and welcome back to Florida Foodie. I'm your host, Lisa Bell, along with our producer, Thomas Mates today. Hello. Today's guest has had an expansive career in the restaurant industry. He spent more than a decade with Darden Foods, where he was one of the founding members of the Olive Garden franchise of restaurants. He's also run his own restaurant management business for about 30 years. We are so happy to be joined today by Dave Manuchia, the founder and CEO of Restaurant Partners Incorporated. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So how did you decide to get involved in the food industry?
I think the food industry got involved with me. I started as a dishwasher.
Okay.
When I was in high school at 16 years old. And like most people, never think that you're going to be in the restaurant business your whole life. And I never did. So went to school, got a degree in business, got an MBA, and ended up working for General Mills restaurants back then here in Orlando when I moved to Orlando in 1981. And so we were doing accounting. And all of a sudden, this guy came through my department and sat there for 2 days, left. 2 months later, he called. He goes, "Hey, remember me?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "We're starting this new Italian chain. I'm the first employee. I have one other employee, and I'd like to bring you on the team." And he said, if it doesn't work, we're probably all going to get fired, and I can't give you a raise. And I said, "I'm in. Let's go. Let's try it." So I ended up being about the third or fourth Olive Garden employee technically. And then there was a team of 4 of us that ended up putting that concept together.
That is fascinating.
Why you?
That is a great question, Tom. I often ask that during those 120-hour weeks. Why me? We each had our own booth to sleep in, and our wives didn't see us. They'd have to show up at 11 o'clock at night to say hi. And well, I had the business acumen, so I was the CFO, administrative guy, policy guy. Taste tester, dishwasher, whatever it took back then. But everybody had a discipline. A gentleman by the name of Blaine Sweat, who went on to create multiple concepts, Smoky Bones, Bahama Breeze, Seasons 52 for Darden, and is now retired. But he was sort of the leader of the band. And then we had a culinary guy and an operations guy, and I was sort of I was the Ringo Starr of the group. I was in the back just keeping the beat.
Yeah.
And made sure all the paychecks went out and bills got paid and all that kind of stuff. And then we all did multiple jobs. So there were no job descriptions. It was whatever it took, you just do it.
So before we started this interview, you mentioned you were Italian. Did you have any input on the menu? Did you, give them your critiques?
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way. I am so not Italian. As a matter of fact, after about 3 months of doing menu tasting of Italian food, and by the way, when you do these things, you take a bite of this lasagna and you spit it out. You take a bite of this lasagna, you do like 20 of them. So it is not fun. But I don't eat Italian, and I'm allergic to garlic.
Wow.
So the only reason there was a steak on the Olive Garden menu for the first 20 years is because I put it on there because there was nothing else to eat on that menu that wouldn't make me sick. And we were there 18, 20 hours a day. So it was called Steak Tuscany, and that was mine. That's it.
That's awesome. So tell us about why and how you eventually left Olive Garden and then your next venture.
So I was with Darden for 11 years. Very successful business that Darden runs and General Mills ran back then. Learned a lot. It's the best place to really learn the business side of the restaurant business. And after about 11 years, it was getting to the point where, I was becoming a little bit of the teacher instead of the student. And I had realized that there were businesses out there that really didn't know what the right way to run a restaurant business was. They could cook, they could find a site, but they didn't put it all together. So I saw an opportunity there and left after 11 years and started Restaurant Partners, which we've now been 30, this is our 30th year.
So before we started talking, we were talking before, and then you're saying that Restaurant Partners does more than just operate restaurants. You also consult, you manage. Sort of walk us through the full service.
So one of the things that I learned at Darden is you have to have an infrastructure to support a restaurant business. You know, you can't just be a chef and have a great spaghetti recipe. That's fine. But what about paying the bills? What about the rent? What about, all those things, taxes and all? So we set about to set up what we call a chassis. And our chassis has marketing, operations, policies and procedures, purchasing, accounting, HR. That chassis is now available to all our clients and all our managed properties as well as our own properties. So what we've done is we built this chassis, and on that we built 3 pillars. The first pillar is consulting, which I enjoy a lot. I really enjoy taking on projects. And now, believe it or not, my son runs the consulting side of that business, which is kind of satisfying to see him come along as well. Then we have management, where we manage properties for other people, developers, marinas, hotel guys, all those kinds of folks. And that's been very successful. And that really is what kept us going through COVID, because HOA fees and management fees paid us even though restaurants were shut down in some cases. So we were very fortunate in that regard. And then we have the ones that we own. And we've owned various ones over the years, but they all sit on that chassis. And they all use the same services of that chassis. And that's how we can expand and provide services to the one-off operator that they may not be able to afford otherwise.
So you do deal with small business owners, people who are just starting out, as well as, the big guys?
We do. We've had many one-store operators who want to expand. And that's typically what happens is somebody will come to us and go, hey, I have a great operation. And I want 10 of them, but I don't know what to do. I don't know how to negotiate a lease. I don't know the numbers. My bank needs a business plan. Whoa, can you help me?
Right.
And we've been able to do that successfully over the years. And we can't guarantee success, but what we can guarantee is the foundation that you can worry about doing what you do best and let us take care of everything else. And that's worked out really well for a lot of folks.
Which is so interesting, because just as someone who likes to, dine out at various restaurants, and then when they have to close for whatever reason, you wonder, how could this place be shutting down? You see it's always packed, they have great food. Yeah. What happened?
There's so many ways it can go wrong and very few ways it can go right.
Right, yeah.
It's a pretty high risk, high reward business. When you hit it big.
Yeah.
And many people have made lots and lots of money. But a lot of people don't work because they just don't have that bandwidth of what to do if a lease comes up. What's a good lease look like? What should my rent be? Is it good? Is it not good? I'm not going to pay my payroll taxes this quarter because I need the money. Yeah, don't do that.
Right, yeah.
Those kinds of things small operators tend to slip into, and that causes their downfall.
Yeah, you were saying a lot of chefs, they couldn't read a financial report to save their lives.
I love chefs, and I kid my chefs a lot, but chefs are everybody wants to be Emeril or Gordon Ramsay, but Emeril and Gordon Ramsay have strong business partners that are behind the scenes, so they can get out there and do their thing and make their food and yuck it up. But the guys running their businesses are business guys. And that's really when we consult or manage, well, mostly consult. We want to stay behind the scenes. We're not looking to be the heroes. Let the chef be the hero. Just be successful. Our reward is making sure your restaurant is successful if you hire us.
From consulting to owning and operating, stay with Florida Foodie as we check out the popular restaurants Dave Manuchia's company is responsible for running right here in Central Florida. Welcome back to Florida Foodie. We have been sitting down with the man who helped start Olive Garden to talk about his new business venture and how it is helping up-and-coming and established restaurants thrive. Let's get back to it. So what are some of the restaurants that your company now owns and operates?
So Sloppy Joe's are the ones that are here in Central Florida. We have one in Daytona, and we just opened one at Icon Park, which you've been to, I guess.
Right, yes.
So those are the ones we currently own. We have kind of a partial ownership arrangement in one in Boca Raton. And then we have about 10 others that we manage around the state.
10 other restaurants.
10 other
Not
restaurants.
Sloppy Joe's.
No, they're all different
Yeah.
brands, all
Yeah.
different. We go everywhere from pizza all the way up to, we have a prime steakhouse in Gainesville with oysters. That's a $100 check.
Yes.
And again, we're able to do that because we have this chassis, and our accounting people can pay the bill for a pizza place the same as they can pay it for a steak place, and HR can hire a manager for a pizza like they can for a steak place. So we leverage that pretty well.
I was just going to say, how have these supply chain issues affected your chassis?
Our costs, raw material costs, product costs were up 19.4%, which is probably better than most because we have contracts. But at 19.4%, I can't go out and raise my prices 19.4%. You add on to that the continuing increase in both minimum wage and what it takes to just hire people because of the shortage, and you start to squeeze your margins pretty quickly. The other thing that happens during the supply chain issue is substitutions. I've had 6 different French fries at Sloppy Joe's in 6 months. Not because I want to, but because our distributor says, this is what we have. Do you want them or not? Yeah,
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
And I'll go in and I'll go, these aren't our fries. And my chef will go, you're lucky we got fries in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay.
Yeah, that's got to be tough considering, like with chain restaurants, consistency across
It
brands.
is.
It's difficult.
But you're also catering to tourists, so they might not know that this isn't the fries you were serving, 3 months ago.
So I'll tell you this little story about, it's a secret that Darden's not going to like me for, but one of the reasons that Darden opens all of their prototypes on iDrive is just that. Okay? We did it with Olive Garden, they did it with China Coast, did it with Seasons 52, not quite, but close. Because if you screw up the group from Ohio, the group from Kentucky comes next week, and we're okay. They don't know how bad we screwed up last week, so we're good. And sooner or later, we figure it out, and then everybody's good.
That's really interesting. Yeah. But you actually opened up your Daytona Beach location first.
We did. We had one in Treasure Island that was attached to a hotel, and the hotel sold. We ran that for 12 years.
Okay.
So we knew Sloppy Joe's. And there are 2 versions of Sloppy Joe's. There's Key West, and there's not every place you can go where you get a cruise ship of 3,000 people at 9 a.m. that are walking by your restaurant.
Right.
So that's a unique thing, and you have, roosters walking through and cats peeing on your foot. All those. You can't do that in America normally.
Yeah.
It works
Right.
in Key West.
And you do a live stream from Key West into your restaurant, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, there was
You're
a lot of
showing a
debate.
musician that's performing in Key West
Yep.
to people who are dining on iDrive.
We're trying to bring Key West or components of Key West to each of the restaurants so that people feel like they're attached to the mothership, if you will. And there was a lot of debate about that amongst our team because some of the guys down in Key West get a little dicey sometimes. And, it's like, okay, how loud do we want to play that? But it's worked out great, and we have a great relationship with our friends down in Key West.
Okay.
And it's worked out well. And people like it.
How are things going? And obviously you missed the whole pandemic era with trying to run that during all of that.
Well, I was telling Tom that one of the reasons we actually opened in that spot, because we're not Darden or Brinker or one of the big guys that can afford those high rents, Outback, was because of the pandemic. So Chris Jaskowitz, who's the CEO of Icon, had been kind of kicking the tires and why can't we come down there? Bring something down here. And it was too expensive. I mean, we have a pretty tight financial box that we have to fit our deals into to make our bankers happy and our investors happy and get our returns. And it never fit the box. And during COVID, he said, basically, we can deal now. We have opportunity, and we struck a deal. And they're great landlords. It's worked out great for us.
And how has the restaurant business, you've been in it now, 40 years? I mean,
Thank you very much.
well, we've gone through your background a little bit. How has it evolved over the decades?
I think a couple of things. The consumer is way smarter than they used to be. There's so much information out there. There's so much knowledge. The Food Channel has brought everybody into that realm. the celebrity chefs and the books that are written. So everybody thinks they're foodie. And we travel to a lot of cities. And, you know, if I had $1 for every mayor or city councilman who told me we're a foodie city, I could retire. I'm done.
Right.
So everybody thinks they're a foodie. So that has raised the level. People know you can't, not that you could back then as much, but you can't really feed them a subpar product. You brought your family into Sloppy Joe's, and you would know if that product was subpar. So that's the first challenge. The second challenge we have, of course, in this environment is labor. Not only the cost of labor, the availability of labor, the competence of labor, the desire of people to stay in the industry. And
Have you ever seen anything like it?
Not exactly. Now, we've gone through 9/11.
Yeah.
We've gone through the recession in 2009, and now we've gone through COVID. COVID has been the one that has stuck the longest, and probably will have the longest lasting impact.
Was this a trend you were seeing before the pandemic hit, or was the pandemic just hit and then it was all the dominoes just fell?
The good employers, and we were fortunate enough to be one, the good employers had the good employees. And there were enough of them that you didn't really worry. I know at one of the restaurants we had a waiting list for servers because they were making so much money. And they all wanted to work there. And when somebody left, you know, somebody came in. Those days are gone. What I don't think we emphasize enough outside of the industry is the career paths that people can have. I mean, I started as a dishwasher and worked all the way through, and even if you don't think you're going to be in the business, it's probably like the news business. You start as a runner or something, and all of a sudden you're an anchor. But there are a lot of ways you can make a living in the restaurant business that are still family friendly. I mean, I raised 4 kids working in the business and never missed a football game or a dance recital or any of those things because you do it different. And that's when I set my company up, I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that there had to be balance. So, you know, whether you're going to go see your son play baseball or your daughter go to a dance recital or your son play soccer, whatever it is, I want you to go. Because there'll be times where you're there till 11 o'clock.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
You know, take Tuesday afternoon off, but be there Saturday. And it seems to have worked out.
So going back to Sloppy Joe's, you talked about the product. I love how you are trying to bring a little taste of Key West, a little taste of Florida to the group from Kentucky or Ohio on iDrive. I have to say, for dessert, I was really torn between the key lime pie and the banana cream, and I went with the banana cream. I don't regret that, but I feel like I, should have had the key lime as well.
Well, you should have.
Okay. my husband had the Sloppy Joe. Which is that what you should order at Sloppy Joe's? I felt like I should, and I felt like I was making the wrong choice by ordering mahi mahi, but I wasn't disappointed.
No. The one thing that I think we've tried to do is try to have people walk out of Sloppy Joe's, which looks like it should just be a dive bar.
Right, right.
And the food's going to be in a basket, and it's going to be all frozen, and it's not. And what we want people to know is that the sort of the tagline I keep talking to the team about is food better than you expected. It's not going to be 5-star Michelin food, okay? It's Sloppy Joe's, it's casual dining, but it's way better than you expected.
Right.
And if we execute it right, and hopefully we did when you were there, you walk out and go, that was pretty good.
Well, thank you so much. It has been delightful to chat with you.
Thank you very much.
And we wish you nothing but success with Sloppy Joe's. If you come to Orlando, if you're in Orlando, check it out on iDrive. So much going on iDrive, so many things to do. I love taking my young children, they're 5 and 8 out there, and we find new things every time we go.
True.
So it's always fun and entertaining. And even when it's hot and rainy outside, you can always go inside and get a Sloppy Joe.
Go to Sloppy Joe's.
There you go.
Love to have you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the time.
Yep.
And thank you for watching Florida Foodie. You can catch us Wednesdays on News 6 at 5:30 or watch anytime on News 6 Plus.